Hello friends, welcome to Code Junction, and in this video we are going to cover default and static method. Both the methods are introduced in Java 8 and this is a very important features of Java 8. Many interview questions came from this topic. So let's move and understand why there is a need of a default methods. So friends, I have one interface that has with name interface 1 that has only one abstract method with name print string, and other two classes implements this interface 1 and provide implementation for this method print string method. Now I am going to add a second abstract method, public void sum int a comma int b. Once I save this interface class, we can see that in both the classes have error, and this is the type class 2 must implement the inherit abstract method interface 1 sum int. So for this abstract method, in all the implementation classes we have to provide implementation. For all the subclasses we have to provide implementation for this sum method. So there is a design issue. Suppose that more than 100 classes are implemented this interface 1, so we have to change in all the 100 classes. So this is a big issue. To get rid of this issue, Sun Micro developers introduce default method, default void sum. It's contain body also. Default and static method contains body. So system dot out dot print ln a plus b. So this default method by default available to all the subclasses, means the classes which implements this interface. For all classes this default method would be available. Now move to the class 1, and by class object, class instance, we can call that default method sum 10 comma 20. Now I'm going to run, and you can see that here is a result 30, means this default method by default available to all subclasses. If we want, we can override this default method in all the implementation classes, or we can ignore. Suppose that in class 1 I am going to override this sum method. Okay, system dot out dot println, and here is overridden method in class a plus b, and I have saved and call s1.sum. Now sum method is present inside interface as well as in this class 1. Okay, so this s1 object will call this method. Now we can check 30 overridden method in class. For class 2 it's by default available, so it will call the interface method s1 dot sum 20 comma 30. It will not call the class 1 sum method, it will call interface sum method, and here is a result 50. So now move to the theory part. Default and static method are introduced in Java 8. Prior Java 8 only interface have abstract method, but with Java 8 interface can have default and static method with body. So direction where an interface has one or more implementation. If one or more method are added to interface, all the implementation will be forced to implement them too. Otherwise, the design will be breakdown. As I shown you to add one abstract method inside this interface one, and we observe that all the subclasses means class 1 and class 2 are forced to provide implementation for newly added abstract method that is added in interface 1. So default interface method are efficient way to deal with this issue. They allow us to add new method to an interface that are automatically available in implementation. Therefore, we don't need to modify the implementing classes. This is all about the default method. Now move to the static method. Java interface static method is similar to default method, except that we cannot override them in the implementation classes. As we observed that we can override default method, we can override this default method in implementation classes, or we can ignore. We can take by default implementation of interface. So here I have overridden that method. But in case of static method, we cannot override in implementation classes. This is just to restrict the provide body in implementation classes. Means this feature help us in avoiding undesired in case of poor implementation in implementation classes. So now take one static method inside this interface 1. Public static subtract int a comma int b and system dot out dot println a minus b. Sorry, void. So this is the static method. This static method by default not available to all the subclasses. Once I want to call this static method, we can call by interface name. So inside class 1 I am going to call this static method interface 1 dot subtract 10 comma 5. We can check the result. Here is 5. Okay. So what's happen if this subtract method is also present inside class 1? So just copy this static method and put into the class 1. So it's not overridden or override to each other. It's class method, and there is no ambiguity as we are calling this static method by class name or interface name. So as like interface, we can also call this method by class name. So class 1 dot subtract 20 comma 10. So we are going to get a proper result. There is no ambiguity. So here is a result for interface subtract method, and this one is result for class abstract method. Okay. So now move to the conclusion. Static method, you can call it directly. Means interface name dot static method name. Subclass will not able to override. It's restrict to provide implementation for all subclasses. Subclasses may have method with the same name as static method. So there is no ambiguity in this case. Both the method we can call by class name dot static method name, interface name dot static method name. And now a default method in interface, you cannot call it directly, you can call it by class object. Okay, we can call this default method by class object. Sorry. Subclasses will able to override it, as I shown you that class 1 is able to override the sum method. Advantage of static and default method. The static method advantage, you don't need to create a separate class for utility methods. Avoid poor implementation, or you can see write restrict poor implementation. And advantage of default method, provide the common functionality in default method, and by default it's available to all subclasses and there is no need to touch all the subclasses. So this is all about static and default method. Thanks for watching friends. Meet you in next video. Bye bye.